If it's a choice between a 60-year mortgage to get your house and a 60-year mortgage to have legs, everyone's going to pick the legs all day long, which I think is probably true. But when you combine subprime immobilizers and legs, you get somewhere very ugly, right? When you miss the payment, the legs walk you back to the repo depot to take them back. And anyone who pwns those legs, because it's against the law to tell you about vulns in them, can make your legs take you anywhere they want. So EFF loves litigating stupid tech laws. This is one of our secret superpowers that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. America has this amazing backdoor to its legislative system. So in other countries without strong constitutional traditions, the way that it works is lawmakers make an incredibly stupid law, and then you have to wait until there's new lawmakers and enough of them to make that law go away. And you have to bring pressure against them. You have to get a majority of those lawmakers to change that law. But because America has an independent judiciary and a strong constitutional tradition, in America, if you can just convince enough federal judges, sometimes only one, that a law violates the Constitution, they can make the law go away. Now, this has some downsides because lawmakers can make dumb laws with impunity knowing that it's good red meat for their base, and then the judges are going to make them go away before they cause too much harm. But on balance, it means that we get a legislator of second resort in the courts. And that means that when you have ideological blindness in Congress to bad technology ideas, if we can get the right defendant in front of a judge, we can make the fact that Congress is full of people who don't understand technology irrelevant to the legislative landscape. So our best example of this was Bernstein. Some of you probably know about Bernstein. In the early 90s, governments had this weird idea that it's hard to imagine in 2015 that anyone would have this idea that civilians shouldn't have access to crypto. It's kind of a crazy idea. It's amazing that anyone could have ever had that really dumb idea back in the early 90s. For those of you who don't know, this idea has come back in 2015. FBI wants to ban civilian access to crypto. Anyway, the NSA had this idea that civilians shouldn't be able to use crypto, so they classed it as ammunition, and they made it illegal to traffic in strong crypto. And people made lots of arguments in front of Congress about why this was dumb. You know, John Gilmore, one of EFF's founders, employee number 6 at Sun, and one of the principal authors of GCC and Solaris, one of the designers of the Spark chip, he made a computer that was optimized for brute forcing DES50, which was the cipher that the NSA argued was sufficient for civilian use. For $250,000, he made a computer that could exhaust DES50 in 2 hours. And he said, this is like the entire American banking system can be beat for 250 grand with this, thing the size of a bar fridge by a guy who looks like a hippie, right? And the Congress said, yeah, that's very nice. Why don't you leave now, right? We made arguments about international competitiveness. Economists joined on. Nobody cared. But then we found Daniel J. Bernstein, who you may know today as DJB, an eminent cryptographer and professor or a researcher at UC Berkeley, a grad student at UC Berkeley, who was publishing strong ciphers on Usenet, right? Remember Usenet? And we argued that his source code was a form of expressive speech covered by the First Amendment, that programmers had the First Amendment right to publish source. And the Ninth Circuit and the Ninth Circuit Appellate Division said, you're absolutely right. Congress is wrong. Whether or not this should be classed as ammunition, classing it as ammunition violates the First Amendment, and we can have strong crypto. That's how we got crypto. That's how we got here today. We love, thank you. So, we love litigating bad laws with good clients. And watching this stuff happen, I left EFF about 10 years ago to go be a novelist and make up stories to help you pass the long, boring hours between the cradle and the grave. And after about 10 years of that, I looked around at this stuff and said, this is dire. As much as I'm interested in making sure that, I can live the cushy, glamorous life of a science fiction writer, I also don't want my daughter growing up in a world that makes dystopian science fiction look like a My Little Ponies episode. So I came back to EFF to work on a project that we call Apollo 1201. It's a mission to kill all the DRM in the world within a decade. And we're going to do it with your help. Because we know that people in this room, people who come to this conference, people who work in this field, violate 1201 all day long. It's impossible to do security research without doing it. But it's the love that dare not speak its name, right? We have a pact, effectively, with the people who want to defend 1201 and keep it intact. And it's that security researchers just don't make a big deal out of the 1201 violating parts in their research. So like they research mobile malware, and then the paper starts with, I got some apps. They don't say, you know, I took a jailbroken phone and decrypted a bunch of apps in memory. They just say, I got apps, and then I discovered this interesting thing. So long as nobody talks about it too loudly, the other side doesn't come back, and, you know, everybody kind of trundles along. But meanwhile, devices that we rely on every day become reservoirs of long-lived digital pathogens that threaten you, me, and everybody we love. So we want to talk to you about this stuff. As they said in Ocean's 11, we're putting together a team. We want to know about the work that you're doing. We want to know, in particular, when you're scared about 1201, and we want to help you figure out how to structure that research so that it's as litigation hardened as possible. So that if you decide that a critical piece of your research is describing the 1201 elements, or if someone on the other side decides that they want to make an example of you and put your head on a pike, that the way that your research is structured is optimized for making sure that the judgment that comes out of it is a shining beacon on a hill for everyone else who's thinking about 1201, and not a terrifying icon of how bad it is when you go up against the machine. We want to make this structured in such a way that 1201 eventually goes away altogether. Because with 1201 gone, DRM goes too. Nobody wants DRM, right? And once it's not illegal to eliminate DRM, people will eliminate DRM, because DRM is only used to protect high margins, and as Jeff Bezos said in a moment of alarming candor to the book publishers, your margin is my opportunity. So every one of those stores that's taking 30% out of the hide of app software vendors is ripe to be disrupted by someone who makes another store that takes 20% out of their hides, or 10% out of their hides, or monetizes it differently by having some kind of platform strategy. Every device that has a high-priced consumable, every John Deere tractor that's selling information back to farmers that they're generating by driving their own tractors around the field, every one of those is a market opportunity, and every one of those will be taken advantage of, and the DRM will disappear as soon as the status of DRM is legally ambiguous or positive for people who break it. And it's not hard to break DRM, right? Hiding keys in devices that are owned by your adversary is a bad idea for the same reason that keeping money in a safe that you leave in the bank robber's house is a bad idea, right? Eventually, those keys will always be subject to interrogation, because remember, in DRM crypto, you don't have Alice and Bob and Carol. You just have Alice and Bob. Bob gives Alice an enciphered message, and Bob gives Alice a device that has the key, and then Bob crosses his fingers and hopes that Alice never figures out where the key is and puts it in another device that does things Bob doesn't like. Right? That is the wishful thinking business model, is the abstinence-based education business model of crypto, and it doesn't work. So here's my pitch to you, right? If you're a hacker and you're doing security research, come and talk to us. I'm really easy to find. I'm the first Corey in Google. Just type Corey into Google. The first result that comes up is my homepage. It has one email address on it. It's the same email address my mom and my wife used to get in touch with me. Email me and tell me about your 1201 stuff, and we want to talk to you and figure out how we can help you, or if we can help you, talk to you about the contours of the law and give you good advice. It's the thing we've been doing for 25 years now, and we're awesome at it. But if you're a designer, if you're a UX person, I think some of those people come to events like this too, get in touch with me about the catalog of missing devices. Because we're putting together a design intervention as part of the 1201 project to help people start to realize what's missing because of 1201. This is an underappreciated fact about 1201, is that there are all these devices missing from the field, and it's hard to notice what's not there. Right? With the patent fight, there's a device everybody loves. Some patent troll has a dumb patent. They make that device disappear. Everybody gets angry. But with DMCA 1201, the device just never shows up in the field, and people don't even notice it's there. They kind of assume that maybe it's like physics is the reason that you stick a CD in your computer, and the computer wakes up and runs some manufacturer-supplied software that mixes and burns your CD to put on your mobile device. But you stick a DVD in, and all it lets you do is the same thing you could do with it in 1996, which is watch it. And people are like, oh, I guess there just must be something like technically impossible about doing more stuff with DVDs. So we're making this catalog of all the stuff that was stolen from your future, right? And if you're into this stuff, if you're a UX or UI designer, if you're a product designer, get in touch with me and talk to me about contributing to the catalog of missing devices. We can also offer you tax receipts for the consulting that you do on this stuff, for the value of your consulting, because we're a 501c3. That we've got lots of ways to make this good for firms that want to work on it with us, and we'll also make sure that you get credit and you'll be helping out in an important way. And then my last plea to all of you is if you're a W3C member, if you're a member of the World Wide Web Consortium, or if you work for a company that's a member of the World Wide Web Consortium, also get in touch with me. Because the World Wide Web Consortium last year took the dangerous and awful step of adding DRM to the realm of technologies that they're willing to standardize for the web, which means that our web-based front ends, which are supposed to replace plugin-based or app-based front ends for everything from our pacemakers to our thermostats, will all have components that are unlawful to report vulnerabilities in and will thus be subject to having those vulnerabilities fester in them. And we have a project to reform the way that the W3C deals with this. And so if you are involved with the W3C, I really want to hear from you. So the DMCA has been festering since 1998. It's an unsightly boil on the American legal system, and it's spread all over the world thanks to the US Trade Representative. And as it stops being enforced in America, every one of the countries that has adopted their own version of 1201 at the behest of this government will be poised to remove their own 1201 laws, because after all, if you're in a suicide pact and the other side backs out and says, no, we won't make these products that our people like, then it's natural for you to want to back out too. With your help, we are going to squeeze this zit forever and everywhere in the world. Thank you. Thank you. So, Goons, I have about 10 minutes for Q&A? Great. So, 10 minutes for Q&A. I don't know if we have mics. If we don't, I can repeat the questions. I remind you, a long rambling statement followed by what do you think of that is a question but not a good one. And I will alternate between people who identify as women or non-binary and men, because otherwise the Q&A is always a sausage fest. So go. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. So the question is, are there still cases where DRM works? Like, for example, subsidy consoles, right, where they sell the console below cost, and then they use games and money from the games to realize a recoupment on those costs. Or other models where I take a picture and I send it to you, but I want to make sure you don't share it on. How do I do that without DRM? And I think that those are two separate cases, and I'm going to take them separately. In the second case, the Snapchat case, that only works. What Snapchat is good for, or Wickr, or all those other disappearing ink tools are good for, is a system in which you trust the other party, but you don't trust their OPSEC. So you say to them, like, we're going to share a document, and we're both going to delete it after we've looked at it, but sometimes you forget because human beings are crappy computers, right? And so that works really well, right? Auto-enforcing OPSEC, great. It's totally terrible at stopping people you don't trust from sharing information that you shared with them and asked them not to share on. Because if you send me a photo to my device, like, at bare minimum, I can just take a picture of it, right? But also, it's my device, and you've hidden some keys in it, and then you expect that I'm not going to find it. That's, again, we're back to wishful thinking, right? So, like, you know, like, would the world be a better place if we could figure out how to turn off gravity? Well, as someone with, you know, chronic back pain, yes. But, like, are we going to defend things that don't have any nexus with turning off gravity, but, you know, let people pretend that we do and have all these horrible side effects? No. Now, as to, like, can we protect subsidy hardware by allowing the state to, like, spend an unlimited number of tax dollars to prosecute people who do otherwise lawful things to that subsidy hardware? I guess the answer is whether or not you think the state should be deciding which business models work, right? And, you know, I think that we have lots of hardware that works without subsidy. Like, nobody came down off a mountain with 2 stone tablets that said the only way a console shall ever be monetized is through discount